A Palestinian Authority spokesperson has rejected direct peace talks with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that they've proved fruitless in the past, so why repeat the mistake? It comes as the Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah and his French counterpart Manuel Valls held a meeting in Ramallah. Valls has already met with Netanyahu on Monday and is in the region to try and push a French initiative for an international conference to try and revive peace talks between those two countries. For more on this, we're joined from Cambridge by Ben White. He's a freelance journalist and an author who focuses on this particular topic, the Arab-Israeli conflict. Ben, many thanks for joining us. So tell me, how much progress do you think the French Prime Minister Manuel Valls has made with his Israeli and Palestinian counterparts?
Well, look, more than 2 years now since the collapse of the US-led, John Kerry-supervised peace talks, we haven't actually got past the stage of talks about talks. And the French Prime Minister, on his visit this week to see Israeli officials and Palestinian officials, is not going to have been able to make much progress for some important reasons. Firstly, on the Israeli side, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition government contains open opponents and rejectionists of Palestinian statehood, and in fact, the coalition government might soon expand to incorporate Israel-Palestine, another hardline party. And Netanyahu has insisted on this concept of direct talks as opposed to any sort of multilateral summit, which you would expect from the powerful partner, as it were, in this asymmetrical conflict. On the Palestinian side, although they have sort of issued warm remarks and welcomed this French initiative, in a sense, it actually exposes how Mahmoud Abbas and the leadership around him are actually without a particular dynamic or strategic initiative of their own, and are happy to sort of latch on to other proposals, no matter how unlikely they are to sort of come to anything meaningful.
That's interesting. I mean, traditionally, it has been the United States who sort of negotiates these kind of talks between Israel and Palestine. Why have France now taken the initiative?
Well, I think there's a concern amongst a lot of European countries about the fact that a sort of status quo has emerged on the ground in Palestine, Israel, where a sort of status quo of permanent occupation, if you will. There's the creeping annexation of different parts of the West Bank by the Israeli authorities, notably in so-called Area C, where there's been a lot of demolition and displacement of Palestinian communities. And I think from the European states' point of view, it's not necessarily that they're concerned, unfortunately, about a lack of respect for international law by Israel, because if that was their priority, there are numerous tools at their disposal that they could use to apply pressure to Israel. It's more from their point of view about the concerns about so-called stability. And from the European government's point of view, a lack of movement within the peace process, a lack of progression towards a two-state solution as they see it, risks instability. And we only have to look at events of the last few months to see that, in particular, Palestinian youth who are growing up under occupation, who are living with the experience of Israeli colonial policies on a day-to-day basis, are liable to take matters into their own hands when there is not a unified representative Palestinian leadership that they feel connected to, but also where there is no sign that Israel or the international community is willing to actually take serious steps to advancing their rights.
What do you think needs to happen before we see any shift in terms of any progress for some sort of resolution between Israel and Palestine?
Well, look, it's not as if the international community is powerless. Okay, I mean, a lot of time people frame the discussion in terms of what the international community can do, almost assuming that not a lot is happening already. In fact, the international community, the EU, the US, provides a lot of support for the status quo. Israel benefits from preferential trade deals and diplomatic protection and so forth. And something very basic that the international community could do would be to simply insist on respect for international law and pre-existing UN resolutions, which Israel is in violation of, and not only insist on respect for those, but actually to provide some teeth to those demands, to actually use the forms of pressure that are open to them to ensure that Israel complies with that. But because there is not a political will to take those kinds of steps because there's no political willingness to apply pressure to the Israeli government. Instead, we have this situation we have now where on the ground there's no peace process but a piece-by-piece process as Israel continues to colonize Palestinian land in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. And more talks about talks periodically, as we have now from the French initiative, but that lack the traction to go anywhere significant.
OK, Ben, good to speak to you. Good to hear your thoughts. Ben White there, joining us there from Cambridge. Many thanks.